I maneuvered my 2012 Honda Accord into a space between my cousin Ethan's gleaming Porsche 911 and my sister Cassandra's brand new Lexus RX. A familiar knot tightening in my stomach. The annual Fairmont Family Performance Review, their euphemism for a blatant wealth exhibition, was about to commence, and as usual, I was primed to be the unwilling star of the most disappointing category. This year, it was being held at Dad's sprawling mansion, a monument to his traditional, old-money success. I smoothed down my simple black dress, an off-the-rack find from Nordstrom that I actually liked. A stark contrast to the custom-designed gown Cassandra would undoubtedly be flaunting. I grabbed the bottle of Chateau Margaux I'd brought, a truly exceptional vintage worth a small fortune. Not that any of them would appreciate its nuanced bouquet or complex finish. To them, it was just another prop, and they'd already formed their opinions about me based on the humble sedan I drove. A car I intentionally chose to drive to these gatherings, a silent rebellion against their materialistic values. Olivia, Mom's voice, sharp and disapproving, cut through the crisp evening air from the direction of Dad's ostentatious mansion. "You're late, as usual." Her gaze flickered dismissively over my Accord, a familiar sigh escaping her perfectly lipsticked lips. "Oh, and you're still driving that ancient vehicle." Her tone implied it was practically a relic, an embarrassment to the Fairmont name. "Honestly, Olivia, can't you at least try to look like you belong to the Fairmont family?" I forced a smile, the kind I'd perfected over years of enduring these thinly veiled criticisms. "Hello, Mom. It's still perfectly reliable," I added, a touch of defiance in my voice that I knew she'd ignore. Inside, the grand foyer was already buzzing with the usual suspects, a tableau of competitive affluence. Cassandra, resplendent in a glittering, probably couture, gown, was dramatically recounting her latest trip to Bora Bora. Complete with exaggerated hand gestures to our easily impressed cousin, Sophia. A massive, framed photo of Cassandra posing on a pristine white sand beach was prominently displayed on an easel. Just in case anyone missed the verbal barrage, Ethan was loudly regaling anyone within earshot about a supposedly massive deal his boutique investment fund, Apex Capital, had just closed, likely a modest transaction inflated for dramatic effect. And there, holding court by the champagne fountain, was Aunt Beatrice, meticulously dissecting everyone's life choices with a running commentary, her pronouncements delivered with an air of unassailable authority. "Jules," Ethan boomed, deliberately using the diminutive nickname I'd despised since childhood, a nickname he knew grated on me. He clearly relished this small act of condescension. "Still bravely toiling away at that. What is it again? That little tech startup thing?" His smirk was infuriating. If he had any inkling that a little tech startup thing, NovaCore Dynamics, was a publicly traded company I founded and currently valued at $5.5 billion, his Porsche might spontaneously combust from the shock. But that revelation was a pleasure I was reserving, a carefully orchestrated finale to this annual charade. For now, let them have their delusions. "Is the Accord still holding up, darling?" Cassandra chimed in, her voice dripping with a saccharine, utterly false concern that made my skin crawl. She gestured vaguely towards my perfectly respectable car as if it were a jalopy on its last legs. "I know a simply marvelous dealership. They handle the Sterling Elite Auto Plan. Perhaps it's time for an upgrade? Though, of course, you'd need to see if your credit score could even handle it, poor thing." The implication was clear. I was financially inept, teetering on the brink of ruin. I carefully placed my bottle of Chateau Margaux on a marble-topped credenza in the formal dining room, only to watch in resigned frustration as Mom immediately swept it aside, replacing it with a lesser vintage from Dad's collection. "Oh, Olivia, thank you, dear," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "But Arthur has selected some truly special wines for this evening's report. We'll save yours for another occasion." My magnificent $2,000 bottle, I knew with a sinking certainty, would likely be relegated to her kitchen, perhaps to deglaze a pan for some mundane stew. The thought was a fresh stab of an old wound. "Julia." "Olivia," Mom corrected herself with a dismissive wave of her hand, as if my actual name was a trivial detail, "is just wonderfully practical. Aren't you, dear?" Her voice was pitched for the whole room to hear, a public declaration of my supposed lack of ambition. Not everyone, of course, needs or appreciates the finer things in life to find contentment. The way she uttered practical made it sound like a debilitating social disease, a character flaw to be pitted. I discreetly checked my phone, a small, defiant smile playing on my lips as I confirmed the latest stock notification for Novacor. It had surged another 15% just today, following the quiet pre-announcement of our latest strategic acquisition. The intricate web of the transaction, one that would send shockwaves through their carefully constructed world of assumptions, was almost complete. My moment was drawing nearer. Did you hear the marvelous news about Cassandra's promotion? Dad boomed, his voice filled with paternal pride, conveniently ignoring my presence for the moment. He beamed at Cassandra, who preened under his approval. Assistant Vice President at Sterling Wentworth. A truly remarkable achievement for one so young. He conveniently omitted the fact that his discreet inquiries had paved the way for her ascent, her actual performance being rather less stellar. And Ethan, he continued, clapping Ethan on the shoulder, just closed a $50 million deal for Apex Capital. Astounding. $50 million. It sounded impressive, until you realized it was likely the total assets under management, not a single deal. Details, details. That's truly wonderful, I said, my voice even and sincere, as I took my designated seat at the enormous, opulently set dining table. It felt more like a boardroom than a family gathering place. Congratulations to you both. Sophia leaned forward, her designer dress, undoubtedly costing more than they imagined I earned in an entire year, rustling with expensive importance. Olivia, dear, she said, her tone a mixture of pity and condescension, I was just saying to Cassandra, you simply must meet my financial advisor. He's an absolute wizard. It's never too early, or in your case, perhaps a little late, to start seriously planning for your, well, for your future. You know, my future? I suppressed a genuine smile this time, my mind flashing back to the intense, exhilarating board meeting I'd chaired just this morning at Novacor headquarters. We had finalized the acquisition of Vertex Solutions, our most significant competitor, for a staggering $3.1 billion, a complex, game-changing deal I had personally orchestrated over months of grueling negotiations. All while my family blithely assumed I was languishing in some dead-end, entry-level tech support job. Thank you, Sophia, I replied, my voice betraying none of the irony I felt. I'll certainly keep that in mind. The Fairmont Family Performance Review, as Dad liked to call it, proceeded with its usual, painful predictability. Cassandra regaled the table with breathless, highly embellished tales of her recent luxurious vacation in Bora Bora, conveniently omitting the part where Dad had likely footed most of the bill. Ethan bragged incessantly about his new ski chalet in Telluride, a property I suspected was heavily mortgaged and co-owned. Mom, with the practiced skill of a seasoned conductor, expertly steered the conversation, artfully highlighting everyone else's triumphs, real or imagined, while delicately, almost invisibly, glossing over my own apparent, glaring lack of reportable achievements. Olivia is finding her own way, she would pronounce with a sigh whenever a direct question about my career arose, her tone implying a long, bewildering, and ultimately fruitless journey. She's always been rather unique. Unique. Yes, I was unique. Unique because I had dared to forge my own path, to build something real and innovative from the ground up. Instead of dutifully following their rigidly prescribed trajectory of Ivy League, then investment banking or corporate law. Unique because I had chosen to live modestly, to reinvest my earnings into Novacor, secretly nurturing it into the tech behemoth it had become. Unique because I had never felt the burning, insatiable need to validate my self-worth through the fleeting status of designer labels, extravagant cars, or an ostentatious zip code. A concept utterly foreign to everyone else at this table. Well, at least tell us you're dating someone suitable, Olivia, dear, Aunt Beatrice interjected, her sharp eyes scanning me as if assessing livestock at an auction. You're not getting any younger, you know. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Her unsubtle reminder of my perceived spinsterhood was an annual staple. I thought of Noah, the brilliant, kind, and incredibly successful founder of Synapse AI, the man I'd been deeply in love with for the past 6 months. They would undoubtedly be apoplectic, then fawning. If they knew his net worth quietly eclipsed $300 million from his own groundbreaking tech ventures. But Noah, like me, valued substance over show, preferring a life of quiet achievement to the garish spotlight my family craved. I'm just very focused on my work at the moment, Aunt Beatrice, I replied, offering a polite, non-committal smile. Cassandra executed a perfect, theatrical eye roll, a gesture of pure disdain. Of course you are, Olivia. Naturally. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Though what kind of truly demanding work could you possibly be doing at, oh, what's that little company of yours called again? The one no one's ever heard of? Novacore Dynamics, I stated quietly, my voice firm despite the familiar sting of her casual cruelty. Novacore Dynamics? Ethan scoffed, a self-satisfied smirk spreading across his face. Never heard of it. Absolutely never. He took a large gulp of his expensive wine. Must be one of those insignificant little garage startups. You know the type, here today, bankrupt and gone by next year. A dime a dozen in California. If he, or any of them, had bothered to glance at Fortune, or any major financial news outlet in the past year, they would know that Novacore Dynamics was at the forefront of revolutionizing artificial intelligence and cloud computing on a global scale. We'd been featured in Fortune magazine, not once, but 3 times this year alone, a fact I was immensely proud of, yet kept to myself. Speaking of significant achievements, Cassandra announced, her voice rising slightly to ensure she had everyone's undivided attention. A familiar tactic. Guess who just received approval for the Sterling Elite Auto Plan through Sterling Wentworth? I'm currently torn, should I go for the Bentley Continental or perhaps a classic Rolls-Royce Phantom? She paused for dramatic effect, basking in the anticipated admiration. Oh, definitely the Bentley, darling. Sophia chimed in immediately, ever the sycophant. It's so much more, you. Cassandra then turned her gaze to me, a predatory glint in her eyes. Olivia, what on earth possessed you to choose that Honda Accord? Was it the exceptionally high safety rating, perhaps? Or the remarkably sensible fuel economy? Their laughter, sharp and condescending, echoed around the table. I let them laugh. I let them revel in their perceived superiority. Let them cling to the comforting illusion that I drove my Accord out of dire necessity rather than conscious preference. Let them smugly assume I couldn't possibly afford anything better, rather than confronting the unsettling truth that I was deliberately choosing to invest my considerable resources into building an empire. An empire that would soon dwarf their collective fortunes. The Accord is reliable, I said simply, my voice calm, offering no further explanation, no defense. It was a truth, just not the whole truth they wanted to hear. Oh, Olivia, honey, Mom interjected, her voice laced with a patronizing pity that was almost worse than their outright scorn. You know your father and I would be more than happy to help you with a down payment on something a little more appropriate. Something befitting a Fairmont, even a practical one. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my water, the irony almost choking me. I thought of the 3 properties I owned outright, no mortgages, no loans, including a stunning beachfront estate in Malibu that had cost more than their entire collection of luxury vehicles combined, a fact I knew would cause Dad to have an apoplectic fit. I also owned a sleek, modern penthouse in the city, my primary residence, far from the humble little apartment they imagined I inhabited. I'm perfectly fine, Mom, I replied, my voice even, my gaze steady. But are you, Olivia? Are you really? Cassandra pressed, leaning forward. Her eyes narrowed in a way that was meant to be concerned but came across as purely invasive. I mean, honestly, darling. Look at your clothes, so sensible. Your car, so dependable. Your whole situation. Don't you aspire to more? Don't you want more from life than just existing? More from life? I inwardly reeled at her audacity, her complete lack of understanding. I thought of Novacore's current multi-billion-dollar market capitalization, a number that fluctuated but always trended upwards. I thought of the thousands of brilliant, dedicated employees who depended on my leadership, my vision. I thought of the groundbreaking technological innovations our teams were developing. Innovations that were poised to genuinely change the world for the better. I am entirely content with the choices I've made, Cassandra, I stated, my voice firm, my conviction absolute. Ethan snorted derisively into his wine glass, a globule of red splashing onto the pristine white tablecloth. Content with mediocrity, more like it, he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Typical Jules. Always settling. That was the precise moment my phone, a standard work issue model, buzzed discreetly on the polished mahogany table. The caller ID displayed Chloe, my indispensable executive assistant and, increasingly, my confidant. Chloe knew, without a shadow of a doubt, never to interrupt this sacred family ritual unless it was a genuine, code-red emergency. "Excuse me," I said, pushing my chair back and rising from the table amidst a fresh wave of disapproving glances and audible sighs. "I really need to take this call." "Really, Olivia?" Mom huffed, her brow furrowed in a V of extreme displeasure. "During the performance review? It's incredibly impolite. Can't it wait?" I ignored her protestations and stepped into the relative quiet of the grand, echoing hallway, their collective judgment a palpable weight on my back. The air here felt marginally less suffocating. "Chloe, what's going on?" I asked, my voice low but urgent. "Miss Fairmont, I am so sorry to interrupt your evening." Chloe's voice was a model of calm professionalism, yet underscored with a distinct note of urgency that immediately put me on high alert. "But we have a critical situation unfolding. There's been a massive, unexpected system failure at the Dubai data center, and it requires your immediate on-site intervention. CEO-level authorization for the emergency protocols. The team there is doing everything they can, but they need your direct oversight to prevent catastrophic data loss." Furthermore, she continued, not pausing for breath, "the final signing for the Vertex Solutions acquisition in Singapore has been unexpectedly moved up due to a sudden scheduling conflict on their end. They need it finalized within the next 24 hours. You'll need to fly out tonight, Ms. Fairmont, routing through Dubai to handle the data center crisis first, and then immediately on to Singapore for the Vertex signing." My mind raced, processing the logistical nightmare. The Bombardier Global 7500 will be fueled and ready for departure at the private airfield in precisely 2 hours. I could practically feel Cassandra's prying eyes boring into my back from the dining room, her ears straining to decipher the hushed, urgent tones of my conversation. A jet, she'd likely be whispering to Sophia with a derisive sneer, for her little startup? Must be for some urgent document delivery. A courier service perhaps. How quaint. If only they knew the document I was me, the CEO, and that the little company was about to make international headlines, yet again. "Understood, Chloe," I said, my voice calm and measured, deliberately raising it a fraction so that those in the dining room might overhear if they strained hard enough. "Instruct the Dubai tech team to initiate the primary backup recovery plan immediately. I'll be there as soon as humanly possible. I'll contact the CEO of Vertex Solutions myself en route to confirm the rescheduled signing time." "And Chloe," I added, a new thought striking me, "what about the Fortune magazine cover story interview? The one scheduled for tomorrow morning? That will obviously need to be postponed. Can you handle that discreetly?" The sudden, absolute silence from the dining room was almost deafening. Even Ethan, mid-boast no doubt, seemed to have been struck dumb. "What's all this drama about Dubai?" Cassandra sneered, unable to contain her curiosity any longer as I re-entered the room, my phone still in hand. Her eyes, usually alight with malice, now held a flicker of something else, confusion, perhaps even a dawning unease. "Trouble with your servers, Olivia? Using some cheap, unreliable third-world setup, are we? I always said you cut too many corners." Ethan, recovering his composure, chimed in with a derisive snort, eager to reassert his imagined superiority. "And a private jet? Is your little company actually chartering a plane now? How very dramatic, and frankly, fiscally irresponsible. For whatever minor IT hiccup you're dealing with. Probably just a blown fuse." I met their mocking gazes with a cool, unruffled detachment that I knew infuriated them more than any angry retort. I then sent a quick, coded text to Noah, "Emergency international trip. Wheels up in 2. Dubai then Singapore. Pickups sorted." All my love. He'd understand. He always did. As I ended the call with Chloe, having given her a few more succinct instructions, Dad leaned forward. His earlier dismissiveness entirely replaced by a shrewd, calculating glint in his eyes, the look of a businessman scenting an opportunity. Olivia, he began, his voice suddenly laced with an unfamiliar, almost obsequious respect that was deeply unsettling. This? Vertex Solutions. That wouldn't happen to be the advanced AI patent holder, the one that's been making such significant waves in Silicon Valley, would it? The one with the revolutionary new processing architecture? The very same, Dad, I confirmed quietly, watching his reaction intently. And your company, NovaCore Dynamics, is involved with them in what capacity, exactly? He pressed. His voice a carefully controlled monotone that barely concealed his burgeoning excitement. We're acquiring them, I stated, letting the words hang in the oppressive silence of the room for a beat, savoring the impending implosion of their smug assumptions. The deal is for $3.1 billion. I paused, then added, as if an afterthought, it was supposed to be officially announced to the press tomorrow morning, actually. We were trying to keep it under wraps until then. The effect was instantaneous and far more gratifying than I could have ever imagined. Mom gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth, nearly dropping her delicate porcelain coffee cup. Its intricate, hand-painted pattern suddenly seemed a stark, fragile contrast to the raw, tumultuous emotions erupting on her face. Cassandra's perfectly sculpted jaw literally dropped, her expensive, carefully applied lipstick suddenly looking garish and clownish against the sudden pallor of her skin. She looked like a fish gasping for air. Ethan stared, his mouth agape, his usual cocksure arrogance momentarily, gloriously, wiped away, replaced by an expression of sheer, unadulterated disbelief. 3.1 billion, he stammered, shaking his head as if to clear it, his voice a hoarse whisper. Dollars? Your company, Olivia? NovaCore Dynamics, or whatever it's called. That's impossible. Sophia, ever the quickest with her smartphone, was already furiously typing, her manicured nails clicking rapidly on the screen. Her eyes widened comically as the search results appeared. Oh my God, she shrieked, her voice cracking with a mixture of shock and awe, shattering the tense silence. It's true. It's all true. NovaCore Dynamics, their current market capitalization is over $5 billion. And the CEO, it says here. Olivia Fairmont. She looked up from her phone, her face a mask of stunned amazement, all previous condescension forgotten. I calmly took out my own phone, opened the Reuters Icon app, a standard tool for any serious player in the financial world, and pulled up the NovaCore Dynamics corporate profile. CEO, Olivia Fairmont. Current market cap, $5.5 billion. I casually slid the phone onto the center of the polished mahogany table, the screen glowing with the undeniable truth. Feel free to verify the details, I said, my voice even, betraying none of the turmoil of emotions, triumph, vindication, and a surprising pang of sadness, churning within me. The ensuing silence was thick, heavy, and charged with a potent cocktail of shock, envy, dawning horror, and perhaps, for the first time, a grudging, unwilling respect. Aunt Beatrice, ever the pragmatist, recovered first, though her voice was now tinged with an almost comical, breathless urgency, her eyes gleaming with a new, opportunistic light. Olivia, dear. My dearest Olivia. You're the head of such a massive, important company. A captain of industry. Why on earth didn't you say something sooner? My son, Reginald, you remember Reginald? He's looking for a promising new position, something with international liaison possibilities. He speaks a little French, you know. She trailed off as the sheer, monumental weight of the revelation seemed to finally silence even her usually irrepressible officiousness. Dad, his face a fascinating, rapidly shifting mask of stunned realization morphing into naked, opportunistic calculation, cleared his throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. Olivia. I mean, Miss Fairmont. President Fairmont, he corrected himself, his voice trembling almost imperceptibly, a tremor I'd never heard from him before. Perhaps we could find some time in your undoubtedly busy schedule to discuss a potential synergy. A strategic partnership, if you will, between Novacor Dynamics and the Fairmont Group conglomerate. There could be mutual benefits. Immense benefits. I rose slowly from my chair, the simple, unpretentious fabric of my off-the-rack dress suddenly feeling like a suit of impenetrable armor. I picked up my understated handbag, a discreetly luxurious Bottega Veneta, a subtle detail they'd all undoubtedly missed in their fixation on more ostentatious, logo-emblazoned brands. Well, everyone, I said, my voice cool and steady, carrying a newfound authority that resonated through the stunned silence. This has been a most enlightening performance review. Truly illuminating. Thank you all for your candid feedback over the years. But as you've now gathered, I have a rather pressing engagement in Dubai, followed immediately by another in Singapore, so I must be going. A cacophony of desperate, disjointed sounds erupted from around the table. Olivia, wait. Please. Mom cried, her voice thick with unshed tears and, I suspected, a healthy dose of raw terror at having so spectacularly, so publicly, misjudged her a lesser, impractical daughter for so many years. We didn't know. We had no idea any of this was happening. Please, you must forgive us. We made a mistake. Cassandra, her earlier arrogance completely vanished, now wore a simpering, almost fawning, desperate expression that was frankly repulsive. Yes, Olivia. Dearest sister. We're family, remember? You'll help us, won't you? Surely there must be a place for me at Novacor, something glamorous? Head of public relations, perhaps? I'm very good with people. Ethan, ever persistent, ever a hustler, leaned forward conspiratorially, his voice dropping to a wheedling whisper. Olivia, about that potential investment in Apex Capital I mentioned earlier, perhaps we could revisit the terms? A small seed round from Novacor, say, 10 or 20 million, could really catapult us to the next level. It would be a win-win. I silenced them all with a single, glacial look, a look that conveyed years of suppressed pain, anger, and now, a steely resolve. Mom, I said, my voice devoid of any warmth, any lingering familial affection. Do you have even the slightest comprehension of what I've endured, year after year, at these so-called family gatherings? The constant, soul-crushing comparisons to Cassandra, the belittling of my ambitions, the outright dismissal of everything I was working towards, everything I believed in? That scarf, I gestured vaguely towards the offending polyester item still lying limply on the table, a pathetic symbol of their disdain, was merely the cheap, insulting cherry on top of a very bitter, very large cake of disrespect you've all been serving me for decades. I haven't forgotten a single slight, a single condescending remark, a single moment of humiliation. And I will not allow any of you to conveniently forget it now, or pretend it didn't happen. Dad, I turned to him, his face a frozen mask of shock and dawning, desperate avarice. A strategic partnership? Between Novacor and the Fairmont Group? Are you actually serious right now? No, thank you. My voice was flat, final. Novacor Dynamics has thrived, has become a global leader, precisely because it is far removed from the suffocating, insular, and frankly, outdated values that permeate the Fairmont legacy. We innovate, you stagnate. My gaze then fell upon the forgotten, tragically neglected bottle of Chateau Margaux, still sitting forlornly on the distant kitchen counter, a silent testament to their ignorance. I walked over, picked it up, its cool glass a comforting weight in my hand, and turned back to face their stunned, gaping faces. A small, ironic, and not entirely unkind smile played on my lips. This wine, I said, holding it up for them to see, the deep ruby liquid catching the light from the crystal chandelier. It seems no one was quite in the mood for it tonight after all. A pity. And since it's far too good to be used for cooking, as was its apparent, unfortunate destiny in this household, I added, my voice laced with a delicate, razor-sharp sarcasm, I believe I'll take it with me. It will be perfect for celebrating a successful multi-billion-dollar acquisition. Their stunned, gaping, utterly speechless faces were a picture I knew I would cherish, in a complicated way, for a very long time. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the Fairmont mansion, the heavy, ornate oak door closing behind me with a satisfying, definitive thud. It was a sound that echoed the closing of a long, painful, and profoundly formative chapter in my life. Outside, the cool, crisp night air felt like a cleansing balm on my skin. It smelled of freedom. And waiting for me at the curb, instead of my trusty old Accord, was Noah, leaning casually against his own understated, yet undeniably powerful, Tesla Model S, a deliberate, supportive, and perfectly orchestrated gesture we'd planned together. He understood. He opened the passenger door for me, his eyes full of a deep understanding, an unwavering support, and a quiet, genuine pride that warmed me more than any fawning, belated praise from my so-called family ever could. Perfect timing, as always, my love, I murmured, leaning in for a brief, reassuring kiss that tasted of promise. Ready for the next adventure, Miss Fairmont? He asked, his familiar, warm smile genuine and all-encompassing. More than ready, Mr. Sterling, I replied, using his less public surname, feeling a lightness, a sense of profound liberation that I hadn't realized I'd been missing for so many years. The drive to the private airfield was quiet, comfortable, filled with the easy understanding that needed no words. A few weeks later, after the news of the Vertex Solutions acquisition by Novacor Dynamics had made international headlines, the predicted onslaught from my family began. It was almost comical in its predictability. First came the texts, a flurry of insincere, opportunistic messages. Cassandra, hey, Liv.
So
Proud of you. Remember when I let you borrow my designer purse for that college party? Always knew you had potential. Lunch soon. My treat at a place you can now afford. Ethan, Jules. My man. Epic news. Knew you had it in you. Got some game-changing Web3 investment opportunities for Novacor to get in on the ground floor. Sky's the limit. Call me ASAP. Sophia, OMG, Olivia, your fortune cover is amazeballs. We have to do a collab for my influencer channel. Boss Babe family success. Coffee and strategy session next week? Then, the emails, each more cloying and self-serving than the last. Mom, my dearest, darling Olivia, I've been doing so much thinking since that rather overwhelming evening. My heart swells with pride for all you've accomplished. I've cleared my schedule for the next month. Let's make some wonderful new mother-daughter memories. Perhaps a spa weekend in Palm Springs? My treat, of course, to celebrate your brilliance. Dad, Princess. It is imperative we discuss how to strategically integrate your unprecedented success into the broader Fairmont family legacy and philanthropic endeavors. Your acumen could be invaluable to the group. I've drafted some preliminary proposals for your review. Let's schedule a formal meeting at the Oakwood Crest Club at your earliest convenience. I forwarded every single message to Chloe with a single, concise instruction: archive. Block all future unsolicited communications from these senders across all platforms. Standard protocol. Chloe, ever efficient, replied with a simple, consider it done, Ms. Fairmont. And congratulations again on the successful Vertex integration. The Dubai team also sends their commendations on your swift resolution of the server crisis. At the subsequent press conference formally announcing the Vertex acquisition and outlining Novacor's ambitious 5-year plan, a journalist from a prominent tech publication asked me about my notoriously modest lifestyle, contrasting it with my now widely publicized immense wealth. Success, for me, isn't measured by the price tag of your car or the square footage of your house, I told her, the words coming easily, honestly. True success, lasting success, is about what you build, the problems you solve, the positive impact you create, and the talented people you empower along the way. The story, and that particular quote, made global headlines. The accidental tech titan, Olivia Fairmont, the billion-dollar CEO who still drives a Honda Accord and champions value-driven innovation. Cassandra, naturally, saw the article and immediately tried a new, even more nauseating, approach. She posted a series of old, heavily filtered photos of us as children on her Instagram, captioned, "So incredibly proud of my baby sister, Olivia Fairmont. I always knew she was destined for greatness. I practically raised her and taught her everything she knows about fashion and business." Sisterly love Fairmont strong inspired her success. I remembered those times. I also remembered her generosity, involved her cast-off clothes that were 2 sizes too big, and her advice, usually centered on how I was an embarrassment. Ethan, undeterred by my silence, somehow managed to get the direct contact information for several Novacor board members and attempted to pitch his failing Apex Capital Fund directly to them, CCing me on the audacious proposal. They, in turn, forwarded his rambling, typewritten email to me with a collective digital eye roll and promptly blacklisted his domain. Mom, in a sudden, newfound burst of philanthropic fervor, joined every high-profile charity board she could insinuate herself onto in the tri-state area. At every gala, every luncheon, every committee meeting, she made absolutely certain to casually, yet repeatedly, mention her brilliantly successful, trailblazing tech CEO daughter, Olivia, who is changing the world. Dad, meanwhile, attempted to leverage my success in his own somewhat stagnant business circles, subtly and sometimes not so subtly implying that he had been the guiding force behind my vision, the silent, supportive mentor who had always believed in Olivia's unconventional genius. His colleagues, many of whom knew the actual, far less flattering truth of his past dismissiveness towards my ambitions, just smiled politely and changed the subject. A month after that fateful Thanksgiving performance review, I received a lavishly embossed invitation to the annual Fairmont Family Foundation Charity Gala. A handwritten note from Mom was tucked inside. "My dearest Olivia, we would be so deeply honored if you would be our special guest of honor at this year's gala. You are such an inspiration. Fondly, Mother." P.S. The theme is Visionaries of Tomorrow. I instructed Chloe to send back a simple, standard regret. "Ms. Fairmont thanks you for the kind invitation but is unable to attend due to a prior, unbreakable commitment in Singapore." I was, in fact, in town that particular weekend. I spent it working quietly from my actual penthouse office, overlooking the glittering city skyline, while they undoubtedly posed for society photographers, basked in reflected glory, and spun elaborate fictions about how they had always nurtured and believed in my extraordinary potential. Cassandra, I later heard, even gave a teary-eyed interview to a local gossip columnist about the unbreakable bond she shared with her genius sister and how she had sacrificed her own ambitions to support mine. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Ethan, cornered by a business reporter, apparently boasted about our extremely close, collaborative relationship, and hinted at major joint ventures on the horizon. The truth? They hadn't inspired anything in me except a fierce, unyielding determination to succeed entirely on my own terms, despite them, not because of them. Last week, reality, as it often does, delivered a few sharp blows to their inflated egos. Cassandra was unceremoniously laid off from Sterling Wentworth, corporate restructuring, they called it. Budget cuts. She promptly sent me her resume, now riddled with exaggerated claims of her strategic financial acumen, accompanied by a pathetically hopeful, handwritten note, "Dearest Liv, family first, always, right? Any openings for a dynamic leader at Novacor? Love, Cassie." Ethan's Apex Capital Fund finally imploded, losing its last major institutional investor due to a string of disastrously bad bets. He tried, repeatedly and desperately, to schedule an urgent, confidential meeting with my chief investment officer. His calls went unanswered. Sophia's husband's much-hyped artisanal kombucha business went spectacularly bankrupt. She immediately pivoted her social media presence, rebranding herself as a resilience guru, and started posting an endless stream of saccharine motivational quotes about the importance of leveraging successful family connections in times of adversity, tagging me in every single one. I ignored them all. Their manufactured dramas, their desperate pleas, their transparent opportunism, it was all just noise, a distraction from what truly mattered. Instead, I focused my energy, my passion, on what I had always focused on, leading Novacor Dynamics, fostering innovation, developing new technologies that could solve real-world problems, creating meaningful jobs, and building a corporate culture rooted in integrity, collaboration, and genuine meritocracy. My old Honda Accord still sits proudly in my designated CEO parking spot at Novacor headquarters, often nestled between gleaming Maseratis, Bentleys, and high-end Teslas belonging to my executive team and visiting VIPs. My employees, especially the brilliant young engineers and developers, seem to genuinely love it. It's become a kind of unofficial company mascot, a tangible symbol of our core culture. Groundbreaking success achieved without ostentatious showmanship, substance valued far above superficial style. Yesterday, I overheard two of our newest junior developers, fresh out of Stanford, talking in the hallway near the coffee station. "So, is it actually true?" one whispered, her voice full of awe. "That Ms. Fairmont, the CEO, the one who's like a multi-billionaire, really drives that old Honda?"
Yeah.
"Totally true," the other replied, nodding. "And she wears normal clothes, like from Banana Republic, not just crazy designer stuff. And I heard she lives in a regular, nice house in the suburbs, not some insane mega mansion." "But why?" the first one asked, clearly perplexed. "She could literally have anything in the world. Any car, any house, anything. Because," the second developer said, a note of profound understanding in his voice, "she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Her work, Novacor, that does all the proving she needs. They get it. They truly, deeply get it. My family, I suspect, never, ever will." This morning, another ornate dinner invitation arrived from Mom, delivered by special courier. The note, penned in her elaborate, looping script, mentioned that she had recently taken a sommelier course and had finally learned to properly cellar and appreciate fine Bordeaux. She even name-dropped a few impressive vintages she'd supposedly acquired. I instructed Chloe to send back the very same unopened bottle of Chateau Margaux she had so contemptuously relegated to her cooking shelf all those months ago. My accompanying note was brief, polite, and to the point. "Dear Mom, thank you for the invitation. Regrettably, I am unavailable. Perhaps this will be suitable for your cooking shelf. I hear it can add an excellent, complex flavor to certain dishes, particularly those involving sour grapes or humble pie. Sincerely, Olivia." Sometimes, I've learned, true success isn't about relentlessly trying to prove other people wrong, it's about the quiet, unwavering conviction of proving yourself right, staying true to your own values, your own path. And sometimes, the most satisfying form of closure, let's call it, isn't about dramatically showing people what they missed out on, or what they failed to appreciate. It's about allowing them to observe your continued ascent from a vast, unbridgeable distance. A distance created not by malice, but by profoundly different choices and divergent paths. As for me, I'm currently on my way, in my trusty Honda Accord, to a crucial Novacor board meeting. We're discussing the final stages of a new, audacious $50 billion expansion into sustainable lunar resource development, a project that could redefine humanity's future in space. I think, when the time is right, I'll send my family a copy of the official Novacor press release about it. After all, that seems to be the only way they prefer to hear about the significant milestones in my life anyway. And some habits, it seems, are harder to break than others. But this time, the satisfaction will be entirely my own.